All right. Well, I am Kari Munson, and I wanted to continue this journey about the beta testing that I'm doing right now, which is all about gut health and balancing hormones. Which, of course, if you have been watching me at all, you know I have an autoimmune disease, and so those things are really, really important to me. But it's something that's really important, should be important to anyone. I mean, it's really about your overall health. But anyway, tonight I am going to talk a little bit about mindful eating. And this is maybe a little different take on what you may think of when I say mindful eating. So let me know in the comments, what you think mindful eating, or what comes to mind when you think of mindful eating. So for me, my first experience with mindful eating was very much the Zen meditative focus, which of course mindful eating really does come from the Buddhist tradition. So it made a lot of sense. It's rooted in that tradition. And so we really focused a lot on the senses. So where your food comes from, but then the senses of, what does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like when you're chewing it? And all of those great things. And it's a really cool process, a neat process, but I gotta be honest with you, it was a little too Zen for me. When I think of mindful eating, that was my first experience, was really that very Zen feeling, and which was so great, and I learned so much from it, but it was a little bit much for me. So that is really not what I am focusing on, although it does give you a lot of great insight into hunger and understanding hunger and when you're hungry, as well as emotional eating. So it really can help you tap into those types of things. But what I'm going to talk about today is a little different take on mindful eating. And you can think of it as, it's sometimes called intuitive eating or conscious eating. So it does serve some of the same purpose of understanding hunger and understanding emotional eating. But what I'm focusing on, and this is through that beta test that I'm doing, is the experimentation and understanding how different foods affect my body. So that's where I'm focusing on the mindful eating piece. So it's those things like, do you ever notice that every time you eat tomatoes or a tomato sauce or something with a lot of tomato in it, you get heartburn? That was me. And I just kept ignoring it and kept ignoring it and kept ignoring it until I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And I do actually have a tomato allergy, which is really unfortunate because I love tomatoes. But you know what? I really hate heartburn. So, there's a choice there. So going back to this is asking yourself those questions of, hey, every time I eat XYZ, this happens. Well, it's starting to log all of those reactions and finding those things that your body is reacting negatively to. Your body's very smart. It will tell you what it likes and doesn't like. So it's using that information to make informed decisions, mindful decisions, conscious decisions, about the foods that you put in your body, so that you are finding the things that really fuel your body the most efficient way possible. And that can be different for everyone, is the thing. That's why that's the really cool thing about this beta test that I'm in, is that it's really focusing on, you need to look at your individual body and pay attention to your individual body and see how it reacts. Because we are all different. And sure, there are some overarching recommendations, but when you get into the details, it's really important to pay attention to exactly how you react to different things. So since I've started this journey of the experimentation, I had to be really honest with myself. So here's an example is in my work with the naturopath, I kept testing as having some nut issues, and that creates some inflammation in my body. So I was not being very successful about staying away from nuts and nut butters, in particular chocolate and peanut butter, because it's like the best combination in the world. So how could I stay away from that? So I hadn't been very good about that. I definitely reduced it, but when I started this process with the beta test, I said, you know what, I gotta do this full bore. So I really eliminated all of those recommended inflammatory things, and for me it added a couple things to my list based on my work with the naturopath over the last year and a half. And so I completely eliminated nuts and nut butters for a couple of weeks before I tried a little bit of peanut butter. And so then I was like, well, okay, let's just try I had 2 spoonfuls of, like, literally 2 spoonfuls of peanut butter, and almost immediately I had a slight ache in my stomach and I felt so bloated. Like, I felt like I don't know, like overate like crazy and had a bunch of stuff that is not good for you. And I mean, it wasn't like some crazy reaction, but I definitely felt a big difference. And so I had to have that reality check up with myself and say, you know what, I got to get rid of it. Now, that's not to say that I'm never going to have peanut butter, especially with chocolate, ever again, but I do know what the reaction is, and I know that I can't do that on a consistent basis, because that's really just continuing to stress my immune system and continuing to stress my gut. And especially for someone like myself who has an autoimmune disease, that is a recipe for symptoms galore. So I really need to be very careful about that. And you know, it's even people without an autoimmune disease. Do you really want to be stressing your gut and your immune system? Because that's what that reaction is. It's an immune reaction. It's your body saying, oh my gosh, there's something wrong. I need to go take care of it. So, you know, it's things like that that I'm working on right now. So what this really means, so I'm going to share with you a couple of the reactions that you may want to look for. So you can do this yourself too. Now, obviously, if you have allergies, don't try something that you know you have an allergy with. Or if you have a stronger reaction, oh my gosh, talk to your doctor, get checked out. I am talking about the small nuances of food that we don't really notice because we're not paying attention to it. So that is really the focus of this testing and this experimenting, is finding those nuances of really honing in on the things that are absolutely best for our personal bodies, and getting rid of or reducing the things that, you know, flare up a little reaction. So here's just a quick short list of some reactions that you might want to check out if you want to try this and start having that conscious, mindful, intuitive eating experience, and start doing some experiments on your own. So some of those things include, this is not a comprehensive list, but some of the things that you might look for are feeling bloated, skin irritation, stomach aches, or feeling a little cramping, joint stiffness. So that's something you may not think of as being a food reaction, but sometimes it can be. For me, if I have too much dairy, I can tolerate a little bit of dairy, but if I go overboard, I have a lot of joint stiffness. And as soon as I eliminate that or greatly reduce it, it goes away. So for me, that is something, and that's an example of how that works in my body. Inner ear itch. So that is something that is a very personal problem, where it feels like it's that inside and you just itch. Again, for me, I have found that that's too much dairy. And when I cut that out, goes away, haven't had an issue. I've had that most of my life because, well, I used to drink 2 glasses of milk a day. So yeah, I've had inner ear itch like every day of my life. Until I started to learn this and make some dietary changes, and now I don't. It's crazy. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. So some other things, heartburn. I mentioned my issues with tomatoes, digestion issues, so diarrhea and constipation. A lot of that can be fixed. A lot of that can be fixed through diet and understanding what works for your body and not. Getting really belchy, excessive gas, headaches, fatigue. So those are just some of the things that you can watch for while you're doing your experimenting. So I hope this was really helpful. Please leave me a comment or message me. I'm happy to answer questions of what I've been doing and what my experience is with this. Again, I am not a doctor or a naturopath or anything of that, or a nutritionist or dietitian. Anything of that ilk. This is my journey. This is what I have been doing and what I have found to be really useful. And this experimenting, I've done some of it with the naturopath, but again, as I mentioned in my other video, it was more prescribed. It was, these are the things that you should stay away from. And, you know, I have found in this phase of experimenting that remains true. And, you know, yeah, there's a reality of like, I don't know, maybe some of that's a placebo effect. I don't know. But I still have those reactions, and I don't want them. I don't want them. So this is giving me the tools and the knowledge to make informed decisions about what I'm putting in my body and how I am fueling my body for its maximum use. So there you go. So I hope you're having a great night. Thank you so much for joining me. Tomorrow night, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about emotional eating, how that all ties into all of these different things as well. That I am working on with my beta test, and I can't wait to continue to share with you the results that I'm seeing in this beta test and through this experimentation with food. So thanks for joining me.